very good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all our dear viewers outside there, wherever you are. Welcome to another edition of The Other Perspective, which comes to you every Wednesday from 11 a.m. to 12 midday, 12 p.m. East African time. My name is Abel Eseru, and today we are going to be looking at is political corruption now institutionalized in Uganda? Before I proceed, I implore all of you to subscribe to all our social media channels. On Facebook, we are ACFIM UG. On YouTube, we are ACFIM UG. And on Twitter, we are also at ACFIM UG. Kindly subscribe to all those to our YouTube channel, like our Facebook page, and also follow our Twitter handle so that we can be able to engage and also engage beyond the live hour show. Before we proceed, I would like to give a brief background on why we have chosen to discuss this topic today, whether political corruption has been institutionalized in Uganda. The credibility of the 11th Parliament to play its cardinal constitutional roles of oversight, accountability, legislation, and appropriation has been cast in doubt following the recent questionable Uganda shillings 40 million, which is equivalent to 10,958 US dollars that each member of parliament received. The purpose of this money that was received in cash remains the subject of public debate and has evoked citizen anger. It is understood that this money is a quid pro quo payment in return for having passed the questionable State House supplementary budget of Uganda shillings 77 billion, which is equivalent to 21.01 million US dollars. And corruption activists have interpreted this as an act of collusion between the executive and the NRM dominated legislature. This is not an isolated incident. Shortly before this happening, Parliament procured luxury vehicles of Mercedes-Benz make S series for the Speaker and her deputy at an inflated price of Uganda shillings 2.4 billion from a questionable company called Albaita Limited, which is based in United Kingdom. The 10th Parliament is also reported to have pocketed money to remove the age limit cap provision in the Constitution in 2017. It is alleged that those that voted yes to the removal of the age limit received in exchange a cash handshake in excess of Uganda shillings 150 million. And also in 2005, legislators in the 7th Parliament were paid a cash bribe of Uganda shillings 5 million for amending the constitution and removing the presidential term limits. All these happenings are acts of political corruption, everything but name, and appears political corruption has become a norm in Uganda. So today we want to look at whether political corruption has been institutionalized in Uganda. So I will be joined by three guests. The first is Mr. Felix Kafuma, who has a very good background in terms of fighting corruption. He's an anti-corruption activist back from the days when he was at ACU, that is Anti-Corruption Coalition Uganda. Until now, he's still fighting corruption, and now he's focusing more on political corruption. So I know Felix Kafuma will bring a lot of knowledge and grounding on this area of political corruption. Felix, you're welcome.
Thank you so much. It's good to be here.
And also we shall be joined by Priska Wanyenya, who is a parliamentary journalist. She reports directly from Parliament, and the incident that we are trying to look at is mainly concerning Parliament and the members of Parliament. So I know, Priska, you will give us some of the clues we are not aware about, and also our audience will be happy to listen from you. Welcome, Priska.
Thanks, Abel.
And then lastly, we shall have Mr. Henry Muguzi, who is an electoral democracy expert, but also he has worked a lot on the areas of corruption and investigating political corruption and also corruption at large. So, Henry, you're going to be helpful in helping us understand whether political corruption has really been institutionalized in Uganda. You're welcome, Henry, too.
Thank you, Abel, and the viewers. I salute you all.
So I would like to go straight, and I will start with you, Felix. in this very issue. When legislators question the supplementary budget and they are told there is something for you if you pass it, then they pass it, and afterwards they receive Uganda shillings 40 million each. What do you make of such an incident?
Thank you, Abel. In the language of corruption, that is outright bribery, because usually you question the motive, you question the context, you question the timing. But before I even tackle that question, you need to appreciate, because we are discussing this in the broader context of political corruption. You need to appreciate the fact that in countries where we've seen political corruption thrive, there are a couple of things that tend to underline how these countries, the politics of those countries, is structured. One, you will find that there is usually what you call a dominant party in that country, in the politics of that country. And that dominant party, because it is dominant, and there are reasons why it is dominant, I think we will also come to that, is that that party, which is dominant in the politics of that country, in most cases has been around for quite some time. And you can compare this with countries like Uganda, countries like Tanzania, until recent, when we saw some reforms in Tanzania under the late Magufuli. But you know what I'm talking about, where you have those political parties that are in power, are very strong, are old, and have been around for quite some time. They tend to, at some point in their existence, such political parties tend to transit into structures that are fused with the state, and they now adopt a machinery of trying to stay in power for long. Now, to do that, you find yourself manipulating the politics of the politics of the day, the politics of that country. And in manipulating the politics of that country, you provide space for corruption to thrive and fuel what many have come to call the regime survival enterprise. It has happened. Political corruption is a bit akin, where there's political corruption, there's also state capture. It's a bit akin to political parties that are very strong, that have been around for a long time, that are fused with the state. When you look at what's happening in South Africa, what's happening in Uganda, what happened, and I think it will come back in Tanzania as well. There are parallels, and there have been in South Africa, there were a number of cases where parliament would, in actual sense, would find itself being paid to soften on a number of deals and legislations, the number of cases. So let me come back to your question that, okay, you have a parliament that has been paid and is sustained by taxpayers to conduct its three cardinal, I think there are four cardinal roles of legislation, representation, oversight, and then what's the fourth one? I think I forgot the fourth one. It's legislation, representation, oversight, and what's the fourth one? And accountability. Thank you, Henry. And accountability. You are paid by a taxpayer. So, and then along the way, as you execute your functions, there are these other interested parties or arms of government that must or that behave in a manner that supports, I won't even, facilitates, that's the actual word, facilitates, additionally facilitates your work, which you're already paid to do. So that the other arm of government, or the other arms of government, or the other entities or agencies can get something from one of your role you play as a parliament, for example, role of appropriation, then that means that in one way or another, we have entered into a zone of corruption. Corruption happening to influence politics, because at that level, when you look at what Parliament does, that is politics. When you look at what other arms of government are doing, that is politics. So this is corruption that is facilitating the politics. And anybody out there may ask, okay, that's politics. But when you talk about politics, we're talking about resources, distribution, appropriation of resources. So the acts of this Honorable 11th Parliament to transact in exchange for a certain supplementary budget to be passed, that is outright bribery. So you can't expect such a parliament to perform its four cardinal functions because it is already compromised. That kind of parliament, you can't expect it to do oversight, to hold other entities accountable, to legislate without thinking of transacting, and to also represent the interests without fronting their interests. So I think we are in a situation whereby we have a parliament which is not so different from the previous parliament. We have a parliament that has already, I think it has already shown us what they stand for and what they represent. If anybody has a carrot that will be dangled, that parliament expected to transact. And I think that's where we are in terms of political corruption. They will transact on the politics for their own benefit. Back to you, Abel.
Thank you, Felix. I would like to hear from Henry. You've just had Felix trying to give his views on why the 40 million is outright bribery. So I would like to understand from you, Henry, what's your say and take on this, whereby members of parliament receive money to just pass a supplementary budget in exchange of passing a supplementary budget.
So thank you, Abel. Let me give this context. So for those of you who are joining us and who perhaps don't live in Uganda, in May, government of Uganda, the Ministry of Finance, presented a supplementary budget to Parliament. Now, May was just hardly 2 months away from the end of the financial year. So that budget had a number of appropriations, among which was a 77 billion allocation to State House. Now, State House is the home, the residence of the man or woman that occupies office of the president, which has lately been transformed into a clearinghouse for deals. Anyway, but that said, so the MPs said, no, this house, the State House, has become a burden to Ugandans, because the State House is just a house where work is not done from. Work is supposed to be done in the office of the president. So when there was hesitation from the members of parliament, a caucus meeting was called. And remember, we are talking about an NRM-dominated 11th parliament. And NRM has been dominating this parliament since God knows when. So that a caucus is convened, and they're told in the caucus, look, guys, you pass this 77 billion, there is something in it for you. Now, we are saying this because those who sat in that caucus meeting have testified off camera and would like to keep their identities concealed for purposes of protecting our sources. So upon that promise, they passed the budget. The budget is passed on May 20th. That was exactly 40 days before the end of the financial year. Now, the rules that govern supplementary budgets here in Uganda say that they can only be appropriated in a situation where such a spending is unforeseen, unavoidable, unabsorbable. There was nothing that was not unforeseen, that was not unabsorbable, was not unforeseeable, that would not have waited until the end of the financial year. So they pass it. So they pass it. After 40 days, they are called to pick money. They picked 40 million Uganda shillings, and Abel, I like you translated that into dollars. It's like a 10,000 G. I mean, yeah, $10,000. Now, what is wrong with this one? First of all, they pick money in cash. We do know that the government of Uganda has been running an electronic system from the time when they introduced the integrated financial management system. If for me, the idea was let us go electronic to remove the human intervention so that everything can be electronically monitored and so on. Little did we know that as we sophisticated in financial management, corruption also got to be sophisticated, but that's for another day. So they go and pick. So because of IFMIS, or any payment to any public officer, whether it is a political public officer, whether it is a civil servant, will be wired electronically. Now, here they are. They go pick up cash, 40 million. Well, I don't know whether we were able to get a picture of 40 million, because 40 million means a stack of bundles, which you cannot just carry. So those that subscribe to the NRM were able to go and pick the money in cash from the office of the president at Parliament. Okay, at the office. I cannot say from, because I was not there to see whether they were inside, at the reception, at the outside, but there. And then those that were belonging to opposition went to the Honorable Speaker's home. And they were advised, when you arrive, you should be able to come in the disguised manner, pick a motorcycle or a tuk-tuk. A tuk-tuk better, because tuk-tuk will not be seen, come with a backpack. So here are the questions. Number one, when they received it, what did they receive? Did they receive a gift? And if it were a gift, did they declare it in line with the Leadership Code Act that defines, that prescribes that all gifts must be declared? If it was a payment, how do you get a payment in cash when the system is electronic? Or was it a loan? So what was this money? We cannot even find a definition. It's only those that received it that can what? Define it. Now, we do know, you asked earlier a question of the extent to which political corruption has been institutionalized, especially in the parliament, in the institution of parliament. Parliament is a democratic institution, one of the most pronounced institutions of democracy, where it is also an organ of people's sovereignty. So when you go there and take a bribe, you're not only taking it in your own right, you are also representing us, the voters, the electors who stood on 14 January and cast the ballot. But you see, you get to see that they receive this and pocket it. And like you rightly put it in the preamble, this is not an isolated incident. Even the parliaments that came before it used to pocket this kind of money. But the fact that the transaction comes State House, and then the one who is, who is presenting it proposes that you will have something in it for you, is already indicator enough that this is not, this money is shrouded in corruption. It is dirty money. And then you go ahead and you get to be called that here is your bribe, here is your something promised. And then you go pick it from the office of the president, pick it at the office of the president. This already tells you that the institution of government, that is the office of the president, is complicit in propagating this corruption. And those who are opposition, you pick it at the home of the Speaker of Parliament. Does that Speaker of Parliament know why the title is Right Honorable? Was this an honorable act to perform? And I'm waiting to hear from Priska about this, but this is an odoriferous thing. It is stinking. It is obnoxious. It has an odor that we cannot tolerate as citizens, as electors. It's an indicator that indeed corruption has been institutionalized in this country. Thank you, Abel.
Thank you, Henry. Now, please, I want to bring you. You've just had the two panelists giving their thoughts on this very issue, and for you, you are based in Parliament and you report, whatever happened and takes place there. First of all, what we know is that Parliament came out and denied that, as Parliament, they never gave out money to MPs as an institution. But the NUP MPs clearly came out in the media and said they received this money, and even they were told to return it back. How true is this allegation that? Okay, I don't want to call it I want to call it an allegation because I want to confirm from some people who report from Parliament. How true is it that MPs received this money, and did the NUP MPs really return the money when they were told to return? And also, what are your thoughts on this very issue?
Okay, thanks so much, Abel. For the only fact we have established is that yes, the MPs did receive the money, but they are theories. There are two theories on what the money was meant to do, because there is the theory of the supplementary to the president. There is also the theory of popularizing the PDM. And from as someone who reports from Parliament, right now Parliament is in a 2-week recess, but unlike the other times when Parliament is in a recess and you see MPs around, that has not been the case this time around, because we know that most of them are running away from answering questions from journalists about the issue of the money. And when the NUP MPs say that they returned the money, we do not know where they took the money. They returned the money to, who they handed over the money to, because they just woke up one morning and the MPs, their accounts had 40 million in excess. So where do you return that money? That is the issue. So if they claim, because you remember during the time of age limit, they called media saying we have returned the 29 million, but this time around no one has returned the money in camera. And why most people think that the issue is on popularizing the PDM, it's because when during the reading of the budget, the speaker announced the recess and said you're going to go to the constituencies to popularize the PDM. So when you look at, and we are looking at the 40 million for each MP, but when I try to put down the figure, it is around 22 billion, I think, because there are 555. Usually when such a bonanza comes up, they give all the MPs, even the ex-officials. The ex-officials, those are the ministers who have no voting right or anything, who have no constituency. You can cite people like the first lady, you can cite like the attorney general. So the ex-officials around 27. So you're wondering what constituency the attorney general is going to consult on the PDM. I don't know, probably. So that is. I tend to think that when you look at the 40 million alone, we are trying to trivialize the matter. But when you put the money in a lump sum, that brings it to that figure, you see the magnitude of the money that is under context, and you look at what could this money have done. And if we are looking at the issue of the money being meant for popularizing the parish development model, you know that in the coming budget, the parish development model has around 1 trillion, and each parish is going to receive around 100 million and everything. So you're looking at an MP already getting 40 million, or yet a whole parish is going to get 100 million. So and now you're going to the constituency and try to tell people to start working and everything, embrace the parish. They will really face a hard time in the constituency, because now you're going to talk to the people who are already poor and telling them that you have to work for the parish development model. But generally, when you look at the mood at Parliament, the MPs have tried to stay away. I think they are waiting for the public anger to to try to cool down before they return after I think in July. That is generally the issue I have to look at. But we know for a fact that I think 3 days back there was a survey by the BBC on the Africa Youth Survey, and they talked about, they asked youths who are between the age of 18 to 24. Most of them are saying they are thinking of leaving the continent to go elsewhere. They are looking at the US, Europe, and South Africa because they think things are not going well in their countries. And some of the youths that were sampled were in Uganda. About 38% of them in Uganda think the things 38% think things are going right in Uganda, while the other biggest share think things are not going right. I think it is amidst all this beckling on the corruption. Those are the kind of surveys that should inform MPs and the politicians on the kind of the political atmosphere in the country. So when they are making such drastic decisions that are looking to only enrich themselves, there is this number of people who think things are not going right. And I was even surprised on the number, the percentage of Ugandans who think, 38% who think things are going right. And when you look at nations like Nigeria, only 5% think things are going right in their country, while the 95. When I looked at the survey, I thought BBC cheated us. We should be in the position of Nigeria. That we shall have to, and even Kenya also has a higher percentage than us. I thought we are in charge of this thing, but I was shocked by the findings. So when researchers sit down and conduct such surveys, it is upon the politicians to take interest in such surveys. And in one of the questions that was asked, I think the creation of jobs came first on part of the issues that governments can do in Africa to improve on the welfare of the youth. And the second one was fighting corruption. And here we are talking about the corruption of MPs. So it is not a coincidence that even the young people are saying things are not going on right within the country. And so it is time for the political elites to sit down and say, what can we do that could better our nation, instead of, because by the time the young people surrender, they will surrender their lives and they say, let me go and do chores in another country. It is like their last resort, because we often we hear stories of people who have died, missing body organs and everything, but still Ugandans are still going. So this brain drain needs to be handled, and the issues of MPs getting money keep on minimizing the fight against corruption that they think they are championing. And so it is like we have normalized corruption, and like we are all in the line waiting for our time to eat. That is no wonder some of them are waiting for the parish development model to eat. Because if you're going to use this money to popularize the parish development model, you are going to tell someone that they have been telling people, the youths, that don't use this money to marry a second wife or anything. But the youths will turn around and say, but you ate your own share. Did I tell you on how to eat yours? Let me also eat mine. So if this money is really for popularizing the parish development model, I think it shows that the model is dead even before it takes shape within the country.
Thank you, Priska. all of from what I get from all of you, it seems you all concur that the issue of political corruption has become a norm, and I want to know from you, Felix, what does it mean? What does this mean to the credibility and independence of Parliament as an institution of democracy?
And I think Priscus partly touched it. First of all, let's hypothetically, for lack of a better choice of words, assume that that money was meant to monitor PDM. Hypothetically, where will the legislators get the moral authority to tell their constituencies on how to utilize PDM? Because I think you know that old adage of monkey see, monkey do. It will apply here. So they don't have the moral turpitude to dictate and define how, or even ensure that we spend the PDM money as envisaged. That is one. But also two, where will the MPs again have, where is their compass of morality to condone acts of corruption? We often see, let's just look at the different accountability committees. We see them squeeze different public officials on to account for and explain how they used or utilized certain monies. So what is their standpoint of actually squeezing public officials to explain how and where they spent the money? I mean, you see that Parliament as an institution has compromised itself in the way it should conduct business in public interest. In a normal functioning society and a normal functioning democracy, Parliament should be one of those institutions beyond reproach, respected, and with a high level of integrity and degree of integrity. So when you have a Parliament that eats from the palms of the thieves, that picks envelopes, a Parliament that is not shy, because some of them, for example, when you are told to return that money and then you say, I'm not returning it, it means that, okay, you are somehow, this practice of picking money is normal. This practice of picking money, there is even some level of arrogance expressed here, and also a level of disrespecting voters. So when you look at even the function of oversight, the function of representation, because when they pick that money, did we ask them to pick that money? Okay, if you are representing our interests, if my MP, for example, if he picked that money, was that in public interest or in the interest of an individual? So it becomes very difficult for Parliament to exercise all its functions. But I think we've gotten to a point whereby certain things have been normalized. In fact, in the discussions within the corridors, those who were asked to return the money, others were saying, many Ugandans were saying, okay, even if it were me, why would I return that money? So you see how the institutions that are supposed to lead us in exercising a certain level of integrity somehow are also giving us indicators and markers or the minimum requirements on how far we exercise integrity as a nation. So everyone was saying, even if it were me, I don't return that money. Almost people are siding with those who are saying you keep the money, because returning it means you are taking it back to the thief. We are trying to provide a space to accommodate the wrong, but wrong is wrong. And in the same way, Parliament is functioning within a society that has found a way of accommodating the ills of society, accommodating corruption, accommodating such acts. Now we have a Parliament to legislate, you pay them. To pass budgets, you pay them. To enact and pass bills, you pay them. To attend a function at Kololo, you have to pay them. Remember, you are already giving them allowances. Already you've paid them, but on top of paying them, you have to facilitate parliament. You facilitate parliament in everything. You pay them to legislate, you pay them to conduct oversight, you pay them to hold others accountable, you pay them to represent, you basically pay parliament for everything on top of taxpayers sustaining that institution. Where does that leave parliament? I think we have a parliament that has defined itself as people who are just waiting for opportunities to eat. No wonder when we are into elections and people are vying for parliamentary seats, it's a cutthroat competition, because they know when you get into that house, opportunities to eat will come. And indeed, they come. So, do we have a parliament that is functioning to undertake its mandate like a normal parliament? I don't think we have. The acts of parliament on the 40 million are not so different from the acts of previous parliament on removal of term limits, on removal of age limits. This guy is the money given to MPs towards elections to go and monitor government projects, yet it is money meant to support and facilitate campaigns of MPs, and this is typical manifestation of political corruption, and it's very absurd. My bigger question is, if we all know, if many of us are seeing this as corruption, where is IGG? Back to you, Abel.
Thank you, Felix. And now we are going to go for a brief break, then we shall return with the next segment.